So do you guys remember this guy? Eric Roman, Mount Pleasant, Michigan? Just in case you are not familiar with him in his Black Lives Matter t-shirt, this is a clip from my video, Are They Coming for Our Kids? LGBTQ Advocates in Education. So let's just get a refresher course on this guy. Now this is Eric Roman of Mount Pleasant High School. He's about to give what would normally be the kind of counter speech that you would see at board meetings like this all over the country.
I'm a resident townie taxpayer, vaccinated and functioning, graduate of this high school, class of 1999, proud member of the LGBTQIA community, and an employee of Mount Pleasant Public Schools. Thank you. I really cannot speak any more eloquently than the people who have spoken before me tonight, but what I can say is that for the last 5 years, I have had the profound privilege of working with your students, with your students, with your students. And I can tell you this, they are hungry for knowledge. They are so hungry for knowledge that despite your words, your wishes, your values, they will learn on their own. So many of your children are hurting, questioning, struggling in this world that we have created. They are simultaneously being taught to celebrate and to hate who they are. I can't deny that. Every day. Ultimately, they will become who they will become with or without us. Give them the chance, the grace, and the support to embrace their own learning. They're going to do it anyway. No matter what you say or do, no matter how many candles you light, no matter how many rallies you hold. With liberty and justice for all.
Now, people in the LGBTQ activist community probably thought very highly of this guy, but there's something that people did not know at the time, but they know now. You guys can watch that video and I'll link it in the description, but we now have updates on this situation. I want to thank somebody who's a longtime fan of mine named Bree for bringing this to my attention, because the media, as you can probably imagine, didn't really make a big splash on this, so there are a couple of articles that we're going to go over here. The first one is about during the trial, and it says, it's from the Morning Sun. I will provide the links in the description. Undercover officer describes sex trafficking sting. A Bureau of Indian Affairs agent on Wednesday described to an Isabella County jury how a sting operation last year netted an alleged would-be child predator at a home on Main Street in Mount Pleasant. An officer who works mostly in undercover operations to root out human traffickers told jurors in Eric Gordon Roman's trial that he worked with many law enforcement agencies during stings last May and July designed to find people trying to solicit minors for immoral purposes. Roman, 42, of Mount Pleasant, is charged with 3 felonies, 2 counts of using a computer to commit a crime and accosting children for immoral purposes, in connection with the undercover sting that involved multiple law enforcement agencies. His trial began Wednesday in Isabella County Chief Judge Eric James' courtroom, with Isabella County Prosecutor David Barbary describing to the jurors events that led to Roman's arrest, and defense attorney Brian Jean speaking of context and telling the jury that Roman's comment to an undercover officer playing the part of a 15-year-old boy named Liam was a joke, when he said he would meet with the boy if he was not if the boy was not law enforcement. Barbary started his opening arguments with graphic sexual statement allegedly made by Roman to the undercover officer posing as Liam, then telling jurors Roman eventually agreed to meet with Liam at a home on North Main Street in Mount Pleasant. Roman also allegedly texted to undercover officers what sexual acts he wanted from the boy, Barbary said. Jean thanked the 12 jurors and 2 alternates for their time and attention and told them what to expect during the trial. Jean told the jury that Barbary didn't provide context and asked jurors to pay close attention to the context of messages sent by undercover officers and to note when it happens whether their testimony matches the text and context of the texts. Telling jurors the case is built almost entirely on Roman's intent, Jean said the case is also about the power of suggestion, and said even the officers don't know what Roman's intent was. Wow. This is like a total cope defense here. Anyway, Roman was arrested July 14th during an undercover human trafficking sting in Mount Pleasant and is alleged to have first used social media to later text to communicate with an undercover officer who claimed to be a 15-year-old boy, then showing up at the child's home to engage in sexual activity with an individual he believed to be a minor, but he was only joking, when he was subsequently taken into custody, according to the criminal complaint. So then we move on to Hes Guilty. Mount Pleasant man accosting child for, immoral purposes. He's guilty. An Isabella County jury on Thursday took less than 2 hours to find a Mount Pleasant man guilty of accosting a minor for immoral purposes and other crimes. Jurors also convicted Eric Gordon Roman, a former Mount Pleasant Schools employee, and using a computer to commit a crime, using a computer to commit a crime and a computer crime involving attempted criminal sexual conduct. Roman, 42, took the stand earlier Thursday, the second day of his trial, telling jurors he went to a home to meet a 15-year-old boy to find out for himself whether the person was of age. Sure you did. Eric Gordon Roman testified that he started chatting with a person who admitted online to being 15 years old, then went to meet him to determine whether Liam, the name undercover officers used in a sting operation in May and July 2022, was a teen boy or an adult. Isabella County prosecutor David Barbary charged Roman, 42, with 3 felonies in connection with the sting in Mount Pleasant last summer, 2 counts of using a computer to commit a crime, and 1 account of accosting a child for immoral purposes. While on the stand in Isabella County, Chief Judge Eric James's courtroom, Roman said he first made contact with Liam in May 2022 and said he posted a photo of himself to show he was not a bot or pretending to be someone he wasn't. Roman testified that he thought Liam was trying to hide something because he had his face partially concealed in the photo. Liam was actually an undercover Mecosta County Sheriff's deputy who looks very young. Roman also said that the chats first took place on Grindr, a dating app primarily used by the LGBTQ community, and that Grindr requires users to be 18 or older. Now, what's funny about bringing up Grindr is that, as Tim Pool pointed out, in the book, This Book is Gay, it gives explicit details, and explains to underage people how to use Grindr. Anyway, when asked by defense attorney Brian Jean about him seeking out chat and fun on Grindr, Roman had said fun could be anything from a movie to talking to sex. In earlier testimony Thursday, a Saginaw Chippewa tribal police sergeant who was part of the undercover operation told jurors that he was on the interview team in the decoy home used for the sting and that Roman agreed to talk to the police after going into the home. Barbary played the recorded interview with Roman, who was cooperative and chatty, telling police his curiosity was piqued and he wanted to know if Liam was actually underage, after receiving a text in which Liam admitted to not yet turning 16, which Roman called a big red flag. Well, duh, so why'd you go to his house? Roman said on the video that his intent was to determine whether Liam was an adult before moving forward. Sexual relations with a minor would be a definite no, Roman told the officers. Barbary and Jean presented the jury with closing arguments late Thursday afternoon. Roman was arrested July 14th during an undercover human trafficking sting in Mount Pleasant and is alleged to have first used social media and later text to communicate with an undercover officer who claimed to be a 15-year-old boy, then showing up at the child's home to engage in sexual activity with an individual he believed to be a minor, where he was subsequently taken into custody. So, the reason this is so relevant, aside from just the fact that this guy was an activist pushing for LGBTQ curriculum in schools, and as you just saw, he was, publicly, trying to shame parents into just being okay with it. The thing is that he had, nefarious purposes for this all along. And you've got to imagine that, again, as I've made abundantly clear, not all LGBTQ people are pedophiles, nor do I believe that they are more likely to be pedophiles. It doesn't change the fact that they're creating a situation where they want our education system to essentially be a safe haven where people can engage in what is identified as being grooming behavior. As I've pointed out, the American Bar Association states that even under the guise of education, you're not supposed to be discussing sex with other people's kids in explicit ways, you're not supposed to be showing them graphic images, and you're not supposed to be nude in front of them, all of which are things that have been happening at Pride and other places. Then just, it seems like We just tick off another box all the time about the different things that, essentially, are grooming behavior that are happening and being justified. And the other funny thing about this is I actually did another video on this topic that I'll just show a brief, image of so that you guys can check it out. Some of you may remember the video that I did bringing to everyone's attention that this guy had a GoFundMe page going for his defense fund. And of course, on the GoFundMe, which actually got donations, it stated that what he was being accused of was somehow not important. I'll link this video in the cards for you guys to check out, but we got this GoFundMe page taken down, thankfully. So every now and then we get to do something beneficial with all of this work we put into stuff like this on V Radio. So in any case, again, folks, it really comes down to this. Grooming is not just happening to kids. Grooming is also something that is done to parents. And this Eric Roman guy was really popular in his area. And I know people who live there, and their school board is still trying to do damage control for this guy because he was extremely popular. That's why, you hear all these people going, amen, and cheering for him like he's some kind of LGBTQ hero. And again, as I made clear, I do not believe that these people are any more likely to be pedophiles than anyone else. But, unlike, say, the Catholic Church or the Baptist Church that everybody likes to whatabout to every time we bring this up, those organizations are not supposed to be talking to kids about sex. Those organizations are not supposed to be showing them explicit materials. And those organizations are not supposed to be nude in front of kids. It's not their stated, mission statement to try to bring these things about or to support them, okay? And in contrast, we are now in a situation where we're trying to push for more and more extreme examples of what amounts to grooming being done by people in the alt-left. And it has to stop, but it's only going to stop when more people finally speak out about it. So I just wanted to bring this to your attention, guys. They got him. He's going away. He's been convicted. And, consider for a moment that you remind people, because he was making a lot of the same arguments that people like Crowdsourced Politics make with me all the time. And I don't believe Crowdsourced Politics is a pedophile, just so we're clear. I do believe, however, that he is totally sucked into this whole attitude that is going to enable pedophiles, just like it was going to enable Eric Roman. Thankfully, the police caught him before he actually did anything to anybody who was alive. And if you go back to my original video, you will see, and I'm still going to check into this, like the Hawaiian teacher, for example, who was literally stating, you're acting like we just want to show kids porn or something. And it just so happened that he was filming himself raping a 6th grade student of his and then sending it to other pedophile teachers. People do bring up the fact that the clergy and I guess military recruiters of all people, I got into an argument recently, somebody brought up military recruiters as I guess pedophiles, but in their desperate whataboutism, but the reason why this is fallacious is, yes, there is absolutely a problem, say, for example, within the Catholic Church, but again, nobody supports that. Nobody's trying to be okay with it. Nobody's trying to suggest that it's all right. There's no group trying to suggest that anybody who doesn't like this sort of thing is obviously homophobic or transphobic. And I'll be doing another video on that topic pretty much right as soon as this one is done. But in contrast, we now have a group of people that are essentially, whether intentionally or not, facilitating circumstances that will lead to children being placed in danger. And they can either act to do something about this, or they can be part of the problem. Thanks for tuning in.